Hello, everyone. This is the introduction to conducting. I will be just sharing different ideas about how to become a conductor, what my job is about. Also, some things I will be adding today will be first, the very famous two truths and a lie. And I'm just copying a good friend in Portland who usually does these same meetings with all students at the Metropolitan Youth Symphony Orchestras in Portland. And I was invited there a couple of weeks ago, and they got these like two truths and a lie. And I haven't done that. And I will be revealing what the lie is by the end of this session. The first one is I went to Paris, but not to the Eiffel Tower. Second one is I was in the Boy Scouts. The third one, I conducted an orchestra with 700 people. Okay, this topic was picked at conducting after a couple of you asked me, what does a conductor do? And that's a question that I've heard so many times. I thought it's really important to share with my dear friends at SYSO what my job is about, and maybe you become interested, and at some point we have more conductors. The question is, what does a conductor do? Since the orchestra, everyone has music in front of you. It's quite a basic concept. You're just trying to put people together, and you're doing this through your movements, through the different movements, but it's more complex than that. So you have to convey everyone into the same page. You have to make sure that you are this messenger from the composer to the audience. And the way to get that message to the audience is through musicians. So the three questions I always have for conducting students at the university, I've been professor at a couple of universities for conducting, and many times I get these questions not fully answered, even by somebody who is going to college. And you say, like, oh, they know already everything. They graduated. They are just going to college. And sometimes those easy questions, as if, why a conductor? What the conductor should do, and how he or she should do it. So why, what, and how. So the first question is why. And for that why question, I will be actually showing you, I will be sharing my screen and we'll showing you a couple of pictures so you can understand how this conducting role evolved over time. So it's not all of a sudden we got somebody just with a stick in the hand, just like waving in the air. But there's a history behind it. So as you see here, this is the very first primitive way of conducting, and maybe we got some others. But in the Renaissance, we got some of the composers using a big stab, and just like stabbing to mark every beat, so kind of beating every pulse with, so hitting this stab on the floor. That's a representation of composer Jean-Baptiste Lully. Lully, unfortunately, actually stabbed his own foot and he got infected and he died after that. Really sad story of one of the first conductors in the history. Let's go to a more positive story of Baroque composers. So Baroque composers usually were sitting at the harpsichord, as you see. So this is Bach or Handel or Pachelbel, or your favorite Baroque composer, and he or she was conducting from the keyboard, and the whole orchestra were just surrounded. So the composer was conducting, but from that instrument. So he needed to breathe to start the music, and he needed to cut every once in a while when the music stopped in the fermata. But that was basically his job. This is Mozart time. If you see everyone is looking where? To the concertmaster. So concertmaster was the one who was just giving those cues to start music. Look, this oboe is also looking at the concertmaster. He's looking at his music, but he's also able to look at the concertmaster and make sure that everyone is together. As you say, nobody in the podium. And by the way, I have to just share with you an anecdote. When I was at the conservatory in Vienna, in Austria, one of my jobs was to sell tickets for an orchestra that was dressed like this one. I think that's pretty much the orchestra I worked for. That's the Johann Strauss Symphony Orchestra, which is just different people from the city playing dressed as Mozart. Only music by the Austrian composers. I was just on the street dressed like these guys here, and I have a proof. I have a photo that I can show you. I just found it recently, selling tickets and just improving my language skills because I needed to sell these in Spanish, English, German, Italian, all different languages, so I can just get some income. And then we go to the Romanticism. If you see here, this is Berlioz, Heitor Berlioz. It was so many instruments that people said, this is way too much. Even cannons were used at some point. If you remember a really very famous piece, 1812 Overture by Tchaikovsky, he also asked for some cannons. You see this big, huge tuba, and the choir was also really big. In the 20th century, we had Mahler, and we had orchestras like this. So this is an orchestra, and you have to guess how many people were gathered for that orchestra. That was in April 2018. That was just 2 years ago. And of course, you can't see everyone at this point, but you have to guess how many others you can have at the other side. So this is the evolution of the orchestra. All these pictures is just to show you how the conductor was needed. At the very beginning, just stabbing with this big stab, this big stick, just on the floor. Unfortunately, my dear friend Jean-Baptiste Lully stabbed his own foot, and he got infected and he died. So we have right now safer ways to conduct, which are just batons. So after that, we got then the Baroque composers conducting from the harpsichord, and then afterwards, some of them from the violin as the one who was conducting, and then Beethoven, Brahms, Berlioz, Mahler, big orchestras, and that last picture with a large orchestra that I'm just still waiting for you to guess how many members they gather for that orchestra. You can use the chat. Bottom line, we need to first start the music. We also need to show how fast the music is going to be, how loud, how short, how the character of that first note will inform the rest of the notes. So that first note is really important. So giving the cue to start the music is always extremely important. So you're not only giving the tempo, you're not only showing where to start, you're actually showing the whole spectrum of what they're going to be playing for the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 1 hour, if that's a Mahler symphony. We have to also cut off the music. When it just stops, you have to cut off if that's a big group, and you have only one violin showing. Probably the last trombone player or one of the percussionists can't see the concertmaster. That's why the conductor is there to cut off the music. We have to also be this messenger for the composer, showing what type of atmosphere we need to create, the different layers of music, and also how much every note is not the same always. Like you have a G, and that G is different if you play it within certain context. That G starting a piece with a big fermata and forte is not the same G if you are just playing scales, soft, slurred in a different French composer, let's say that. So that's it. Those are all on what the conductor should do. And then the how. If you see this, so conductors, we imagine that we have this imaginary table. That's where the music always, or where my movements always start and end. And from there, we always go up and down, or whatever we have. And I use always the benefit of all physical elements. One is the gravity. So since the hands just go by themselves, I just use that gravity to make me just use the less amount of movements I need. So this is this imaginary table, and we create some patterns. Those patterns is just to distribute the different beats you have in a measure. So if you have a 2 beats per measure, you just go 1 and 2. So 1 to the right, 2 to the left. And that's really basic and really the easiest pattern. Probably that's why this wants to smile. Okay, sorry for that bad joke. And I'm really bad drawing. This is the pattern of 3. 1, 2, 3. And I want to point out how much the last beat is so important. So we have 1, we have 2, and we have 3. So the 3 is always going up. And let me skip 4, 5, 6, 7. How about we do another one like 11? So it's going to be whatever you do in between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. I'm exaggerating this a little bit. I wanted to point out is the first one and the last one are really important. And we try to make it really clear so everyone can see you from any place in the orchestra. So I'm going to just jump into the really famous 4/4. This one, 4/4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you notice, always this imaginary table help people know or anticipate where conductors will hit. That's also called ictus. The play we just kind of like pinch and we just rest with our hand. And you can just keep going with different amount of beats. Let me just show you 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if that 5 have, let's say, 2 beats and then another 3 beats kind of distributed, you can just kind of like make a little bit maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but the pattern is still the same. So this is the different conducting patterns. So at this point, we learn why we need a conductor, that what it's just still the couple of things I mentioned, to keep a tempo, to start the music, to cut off the music if you have a fermata, to make sure that that message from the composer goes directly to the audience, to the musicians, in terms of how soft, smooth, how notes are connected or not. So how about everyone at this point, at this time, at your home, try the different patterns. So this is my next step. So you're gonna just stand up and you have to find that imaginary table, that place where you feel that your hands are good. Notice that if I go below, probably people are not going to see me. If you don't go down where your arms can rest, then you're going to be tired after 10 measures. And remember, as a conductor, I need to be conducting and waving my hands sometimes for even as long as 10 hours a day. And not just this, but really passionately with lots of music and questions from musicians and here and there. So really comfortable. This is not comfortable to me. And you can't copy me. You have to find your own. If you try to copy a conductor, it doesn't work. The length of your arms is different, even from between you and your siblings. Your torso is different. So you have to just find yourself. Oh, I feel really comfortable here. Oh, it's loss of tension, so maybe just a little bit to your body. Oh, you're stretching too much. And when you find that really beautiful table, you start just finding the different places for those patterns. So the 1, just up and down. And remember, your hand just go by itself down, because gravity helps it go down. You don't need to move it down. Just let it rest, because gravity will always help you. You have to use all those physical elements. And then the 2, down, 1, 2, the happy face I draw there. The 3, which is down, right, left, down, right, left. The 4, down, left. Oh, by the way, remember, we're in a mirror. So when I say left, you might be just looking at your right. So I'm just telling you what side you should go to. Do not copy me. Just follow the instructions. Down, left, right, up. Down, left, right, up. If you copy me, you're gonna be the other way, because remember, we're in a mirror. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just do something new. Let's do 8. So the easiest way to do 8 is by subdividing 4. Something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember what I mentioned about the last one? So if we do this clearly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's really important. I'm not saying the other 6 bits are not important, but you have to distribute it really nicely and beautiful, so nobody's confused where we are at. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is basically, you can sit down. So how to distribute, how to organize all your space in front of you. And guess what? You can practice all those patterns while listening to music at home. You can just play something and start just waving your hands, trying to organize them into as many beats as you have per measure. But as Aiden is doing, also getting a little bit crazy is not bad at all. So, and that's where we have to think how much we as conductors need to be in that middle ground of being responsible for everyone being safe, but at the same time bringing that message from composer. And I'm so sure if the composer wanted to have a really big chord, if you just do this, it's not enough for the musicians to be inspired and being reminded that we need to play not just loud, but big, let's say smooth, or any adjectives you can find for music. Trickiest part there is you have to learn the score. You have to check on every one of the lines because in the score you have all different instruments. You have to check them all, and then you have to learn that score. And that's a whole other process. I will go in another SYSO talk about how to learn a score, the score study, which is it's amazing. I love score study. Every time I go back to score, it's different. And I've conducted many pieces, so some pieces many times. And every time I go there, it's like you find new things. I want to show you some video to kind of like refresh the day. And you know.
Conducting.
So I know this is just extreme, but I just wanted to share that. I found it so funny. Usually you say conducting is a baton, and some conductors just don't use any baton. Actually, I stopped using batons at some point, probably like in my late 20s, for like a year ago, I remember. I just got it back to them because if you have a large orchestra, you really need baton. And I just want to show you the different batons I have here. The way it's completely done in a way you can like do this. So exactly where you put your finger, it's a balance point. So anyway, some fancy batons, but not as expensive as an instrument. So if you pick conducting, you're not going to be facing an expensive instrument of the baton. That's what that's what I'm putting all different information right here. Actually, in fact, we have a great conductor, Valery Gergiev, Russian conductor, who doesn't have a baton, but he has this is real, and he conducts all the time with that. That's what he uses to conduct. And I want to just introduce you my little new friend.
He really.
That was handmade by a good. Friends in LA, in Los Angeles. They were musicians at one of my orchestras. Look at this. This is just what you need. If you're clear with this little baton, you are clear with a long baton. So this is how I'm starting to practice. This is just great. How about my 2 truths and a lie? So one truth is I was in the Boy Scouts. I was in the Boy Scouts, and I did conduct an orchestra with 700 people a couple of years ago. That was in a hangar. We put 700 people in the hangar, and we played a whole program. It was quite fun. Have a great Saturday. Stay